is an interview with Roy Huff, who served in the
Army. United States Army.
during what years?
April of 43 to January of 45.
Where were you born?
I was born in Green Bay at Bellin Hospital.
Tell me about your background and life before you went into the military, about your family and your education.
Let's see, as a newborn and until, let's see, what year would that be? Well, in my early years going to school, I went to school in the Green Bay, and then I attended high school in Westy Pier. At that time, I was living with my mother and grandmother here on the reservation. And after I completed high school, there was a program offered youth in the trades at the vocational school. And the program provided the students, upon completing the course, that they would offer them jobs in the United States in various parts of the country. That was during the World War II. And I chose the West Coast. I ended up working in Bremerton Navy Yard in Washington State. Completing and during my training there, I was drafted into the Army in April. Upon receiving my notice of draft, I was offered a 6-month deferment, which I had refused. I turned down. Then I went to the Army.
Can I ask why you turned it down, just to go to the Army?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about basic training. Where was it? How long was it?
I would be from April 43 until November. I was at Fort Riley, Kansas, and my first week in the Army, I experienced what it's like to be in a tornado in Kansas. I survived that. Most of the guys did, but there was one death. It was hot. It was very hot. Matter of fact, during basic training, I had heat stroke. I come to, I'm in the hospital. But then when I finished basic in Kansas, I shipped to the West Coast. I had additional training at Fort Ord, California. Completing additional training there, I was transferred to Camp Stroman, which was a replacement depot. A replacement depot supplied personnel to various outfits that were shipping out, and they were short on personnel. And we didn't have a choice of who we're going to end up with, but I ended up with outfit going to Hawaii for additional training, which we did receive there. And I was stationed in Hawaii for quite a while, a year and a half, matter of fact, before we were shipped out to called Peleliu, and that was a combat area.
What was your camp like, on the
It
facilities?
wasn't a camp.
No.
My platoon was stationed on the island. Peleliu was a part of a chain of islands, and the main island was a major force of Japanese, and our basic duty was more or less an outlook. In the event they came, there's an airfield where we were stationed. We weren't exactly stationed at the airfield, but we were on the island where the airfield was. And we were located on another little island. It was very small. There was outpost duty, called outpost duty, which we more or less outlook in the event the Japanese were coming our way. Mm-hmm.
Did you get any specialty training?
Did I get that what?
Did you have a specialty in the military?
Yes, I was in heavy weapons platoon. I was the gunner on a 90 millimeter mortar. 90 millimeter mortar.
So what was life like where you were stationed on the islands? Like, did you have friends?
Well,
What did you do for fun?
being just a platoon, which is an outfit, we were roughly 60 people, 30 to 60 people, just knew everybody. Mm-hmm.
So
Funny thing happened too. That outpost island around there was a horse, a pony horse. Yeah, he survived the war.
what was your training regimen? Like, what was a day like? What would you wake up and do, and then like what? Go through your day. Like
Training?
Yeah.
During basic training, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
First thing was up, we got up and had chow. Then we were assigned to wherever. We had various duties. And they taught how to perform marching drills, learn about weapons, and it included, remember one day we took a 25-mile hike, and it was hot. That's when I had that heat stroke. We were on our way back, and the camp was in sight, and we were out of water, but we had a 10-minute break, cigarette break. There was a farm nearby. One of the guys ran over and got some water. He come back, I overdid it. It was cold water, and I overdid it, and I think that as we back marching towards camp, I went down. I don't remember it, but woke up in the hospital. Mm-hmm. They just gave me salt pills and rest. Mm-hmm.
So when you were deployed, where were you first deployed?
To Hawaii.
To Hawaii. Okay. Well, how were you alerted of your first? Like, how did they tell you that you were going to Hawaii?
How did they tell me?
How'd you find out?
I don't remember being told anything. I don't recall. All I remember is that we're shipping out. Ended up we're on a civilian passenger ship that was during. There were 10,000 of us on the boat, include the first increment of waves, Women Army Corps.
Do you remember how you felt?
How I felt. Well, I'm just curious, and during the trip, it took us 3 or 4 days, and I don't recall other than that we were crowded. A lot of seasickness that created a problem. There weren't facilities for the amount of people that got seasick. We had 2 guys in our outfit that I thought was strange. Just talking about going on the water, they got sick.
What were your first impressions when you got there?
Well, let's see. It was nice weather all the time. We were up in the mountain, and during the day it's nice and warm, but evening you need a blanket at night. We were stationed at, we arrived at the island. They put us on a train. The train was a narrow gauge railroad, and they stayed like this wide. The cars weren't bigger than this. They were open. They were for hauling cane, and we rode in those cars up the mountain. A lot of pineapple fields, and what's the name of the camp? I can't come up with the name. It was in various movies. I can't recall the name offhand. It was Schofield Barracks. That's it, Schofield Barracks. And during our time there, we took additional training, jungle training. They called it jungle training. It was having in my civilian life, I was familiar with outdoor life, and a lot of the young guys, they weren't. It was all real new experience for them. They were urban people. And remember one night they took us out in the jungle and turned us loose with a compass. We had to go from here to there, and then in the dark. And if you didn't hang on to your buddy, you got lost. You couldn't see, so you had to hang on to somebody. And anyway, a couple of guys that got lost. It wasn't a tragedy, but yeah, we found them.
Let's see. What did you do in your free time for fun? Like,
My fun time? On weekends, if we passed inspection on Saturday, we had Sunday free time. In the States, we should go to Junction City, Kansas, which is within walking distance. couple of 3 miles. We go in town and go swimming in a city pool, and after we go buy watermelon. that was our luxury.
What were living conditions like?
What for what?
Living conditions, like how was the food? How was sleeping?
I don't remember the food being bad until I got overseas on station on the island. We didn't have one of the best cooks in the world. Matter of fact, one time they asked me, "Do you want to be a cook?" No way. Enough people shooting at me without being a cook. I didn't know how to cook anyway.
How was the like facilities? How was like showering or laundry? How was all that?
Very basic. We lived in a tent. Shower was a big old can overhead, and I don't remember anything in particular other than that on that last island. Like I mentioned before, just a small group. We're our platoon, and then sometimes it was boring. It was so hot that you had to take a break. In the afternoon, we didn't have much activity. When they weren't on duty, didn't do much but lay around. I remember too, for me on a field was going to be whatever our basic entertainment would pitch horseshoes. Other than that, there was nothing to really do other than play cards, of course. Nothing exciting for entertainment.
What was your contact like with home?
Pardon me?
What was your contact like with home back in Wisconsin? With your family?
What was your contact like at home back in Wisconsin? Did you have contact?
Oh, yeah. I wrote letters to my mother, and our officer had a typewriter, and there's they called it a V-mail. It was one piece of paper that you use for stationery. I used to borrow his typewriter and write down. I knew how to type. I learned that in high school. And lo and behold, I ended up more or less the company clerk. This is in Hawaii. I had to go pick up mail. That was an experience. Jump in the Jeep and we go to, we had to go through ammunition dump. It's a big piece of property, and it took us halfway up the mountain. Anyway, you check in, and then you go through the property, and you had to check out. And they timed you. They knew how long it took to get from that point A to point B. But that was a trip up the mountain to Schofield Barracks to get the mail. We were stationed at Kaneohe Air Base, which was right on the ocean. up the mountain to Schofield to get mail. Be like traveling from here to Seymour or Black Creek up the mountain.
What was some of the biggest challenges that you had while you were there?
This isn't what you're talking about.
Yep.
Jeez. I don't recall anything challenging other than trying to keep up with the program that we had us in. Whatever it might be, you wanted to at least learn something.
Where did you go after Hawaii?
I went to Peleliu. That was near Okinawa. When I say near, would say within 1,000 miles, which is basically close.
Tell me about your experiences with combat. Did you see combat?
We were in a combat area, and after the war, we had to the Japanese had a lot of caves, and those caves had to be inspected to make sure there weren't any Japs left there. You couldn't get them out, you just blow the cave shut. That was basically my combat experience.
Do you remember the names of the battles or campaigns that you were in?
Always in A.
Did you ever have any close calls?
No.
How did you feel when you were in combat?
Oh,
Like when you were?
Oh.
Yeah.
How did I feel? A little bit apprehensive because you never knew what you'd find.
Did you have any good luck charms or superstitions that you had?
No. My creator.
So now we're going to talk about your discharge. How did you feel
Talk about what?
when you came home from the military? How did you feel when you found out that you were going to be coming home?
Well, that was kind of exciting because they had a program that they sent the guys home by the length of service. You had that point system, and the more points you had, the sooner you went home. And when that happened, seeing your best friend leave, that was a very exciting moment. Yeah, because the outfit I was in, that platoon, most of the guys were older than me. As a matter of fact, they called me kid. I was only 19 when I joined them at Camp Stroman. I'm the kid. Anyway, I had a couple guys who were really close friends. And it was tough seeing them leave. And when it came my turn, actually, eager beaver, let's go. And that was an experience. From Peleliu, they shipped it to Saipan, and Saipan was a staging area. We had to wait for transportation there. And we left in November from Saipan. We ended up in San Pedro, California, Christmas Eve of 45. And at night, nobody there to greet us, just our transportation.
What was it like coming home? How were you greeted by everyone? Who was there to meet you?
When I got back to Oneida, we just had a blizzard. There's no tracks anywhere. I lived next to the Darby Hill Center, that first house. So from the train depot there, I just walked down the road. There's one track down the one track there was in the snow, and I walked in that. Somebody gone through the sleigh, but anyway, that was a blizzard, and not the actual blizzard. The blizzard had been the night before. After the blizzard. The only people who believed me were my grandmother and my mother, and my cousin, and my aunt. That's where I lived with my grandmother.
How did you feel when you got home?
Really happy, good, felt kind of strange at first, but there wasn't regimental that I adhered to in the military. I'm free to do what I want, when I want.
What did you do for work after the service?
Let's see, I got out in January. I didn't do anything until, let's see, when did I get a job? When the weather got right, I got a job with a construction company for, I don't remember exactly how long, but in July I started working here in Green Bay at a company called L.D. Schreiber. L.D. Schreiber was a cheese processing plant. They're still there. And I did that for 5 years before I went to work for the post office. And I worked there 38 years.
Have you stayed in contact with anyone in the military?
No,
Have you attended any reunions at all? Or?
no. They were from Pennsylvania, the outfit in Wisconsin, and
Can you give me a summary of how you feel about your whole experience in the military?
well, before we shipped out in basic training, you're apprehensive about the future. I mean, you get trained to go to war. Where am I going to go? And of course, there's this thought of the dangers involved, and of course, you're concerned of your survival.
What surprised you? And then, like, what didn't you expect about your experience?
Say again,
What surprised you being
What-
in the military?
what surprised me? What surprised me? I don't recall being surprised about anything. No.
How did your experience change you? Do you, like how, let's see, how did it change your path of life or your character?
How did it change my path in life? Well, I became aware that as an individual I had responsibilities, which as a youth you didn't really quite understand, but as I matured, I had begun to realize that. And matter of fact, what was now the military, I was in January, I was married in July. I knew the girl before I went in the military. And that basically what I learned is being responsible.
Is there anything that you would want anyone listening to this interview to know?
Say again?
Is there anything you want anyone listening to this interview to know about your experience?
Is there anything?
That you would want someone who would listen to this interview to know about your experience?
Well, anybody wants to listen, they're welcome to listen.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, after I got out, of course, I had to see all them guys that had served in various parts of the country, and the world, rather. It's funny, I ended up in the Pacific. Most of the guys went to Europe. But in my moving around for our USO, for instance, used to have books where you could log in your having been there. Actually, I'd always look for guys that had been from Wisconsin, and a couple of times I came across names. Another time, another guy, a friend of mine, he was in Europe. And lo and behold, one day I get a letter from him, which was really surprising. I don't know how he got my address, but anyway, so then we started exchanging letters. That was strange how he contacted me. Another time, mail. We're still stateside, but having moved frequently, sometimes it took mail considerable length of time to catch up to you. And I didn't get mail too often, and there's one day, mail call, I get a pack of letters. I opened them. Well, none of them were mine, but they all had my name, Roy Huff. But the return address was not mine, except one. It was from Athens, Tennessee. What happens when I was in school, my last year in high school, I was in Tennessee. And that's another story. Anyway, at graduation, this young lady was there, and she was from Athens. So how in the world? Anyway, I'm curious about this letter. I opened it, and it wasn't for me. But I opened because of Athens, Tennessee address. Yeah, there's a program through the church that there were scholarships that were awarded three of us young guys. and we attended the school in Tennessee for our. Well, I was a senior, but the other two guys, they were freshmen, juniors, but anyway, I was the only senior. Well, I had left the reservation, so when I finished school, I went to Washington State. And then I was in Tennessee before, so I'd been around a little bit. It wasn't, it was not a new experience to me to travel. Mhm.
All right, well, I have nothing else, so if there's anything else you want to say, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Well, I never drank beer until I went in the military, so I did learn that. And a lot of free time we'd gamble, so I learned how to do that, play cards, you know. Oh, and dice, they even took dice. And that's about it. That's good times. It's funny how you remember good times. Anyway, it was an experience.